Welcome back. We are joined by NDP leader Adrian Dix, who is in Kamloops for the day. It's great to have you on the show.
Great to be here, Susan.
Yes. Have you been on the Midday show before?
I have not been on the Midday. I've been on the 5 a couple of times.
Yes, that's right. Well, welcome back to Kamloops.
Right on.
Yeah, we have pretty good weather for you today.
We have great weather. It's always beautiful here. This is one of the most beautiful cities in British Columbia, I think. And,
Thank you.
And when you're here, and so I'm here often. Of course, I've been here dozens and dozens of times in this and in previous jobs. And I love it here.
Yeah, it's a great city. You are here, though, to talk about something that is people are worried about and people are concerned about, and that is our increase in hydro. They're proposing some fairly steep hikes over the next 5 years, I believe it is. Maybe you can give us the background.
Well, they're front-end loading them, so the big increases over the next 2 years, 25% upcoming. The Premier had said during, before, and even immediately after the election, because she had to go and get elected herself in a by-election in Kelowna, that she was going to wrestle hydro rate increases to the ground, but they clearly weren't telling the truth, and now it's ratepayers that are going to have to pay the price. And
who's going to suffer? I understand you have concerns about the resource-based sectors, which the BC is very much made up of resource-based sectors. They're going to use more hydro. Seniors living on fixed incomes, of course, will be hurt as well.
Well, that's right. All residential customers are going to be affected. Families are going to be affected. Business is going to be affected. Small business is going to be affected. One of the main competitive advantages BC has always had is relatively low hydro rates. It gives our businesses a competitive advantage over other jurisdictions, even if some other things are more expensive. Sometimes we're farther away from our markets, for example. We make up for some of that because of hydro. And the Liberals have kind of thrown that away. Remember, the reason we have hydro rate increases isn't because our dams are more expensive to run than they were. They're in fact not. The reason we have them is that they decide to buy expensive private power in some cases, power for which there's no market. So you buy something at $80 and can only sell it at $15. You're losing a lot of money. It's ratepayers that have to make that up. And they invested in things like smart meters, $1 billion for that. And now we have to pay the price for that. And the final reason is hydro is being forced by the government to transfer money it's borrowing, it doesn't have, over to the government in order to allow Premier Clark to pretend that she's balanced the budget.
And there's no stopping this at this point. It's a done deal.
Well, it can be stopped. Of course it can be stopped. I mean, two things should happen right now. They shouldn't be taking a dividend. The government is taking a dividend today. So they're asking school boards to cut education in order to pay more money in hydro rates. Hospitals the same. Ratepayers the same. So that the government essentially can pretend to have a balanced budget. So why should hydro be borrowing money in this year to pretend that it has a dividend in order to give it to the province, so they could say no to that, first of all. And secondly, the BC Utilities Commission is a body that exists to regulate BC Hydro. Why? BC Hydro is largely a monopoly in British Columbia. You need someone, when you have a monopoly, to police the monopoly, and that's what we have, the BCUC, except that the Liberals have exempted many of their decisions, their key decisions, including this rate increase from the BC Utilities Commission.
Let's change gears a little bit and talk about the fact that you are staying on now as the NDP leader until September.
Yes.
And so how have things changed for you?
Well, not a great deal. I mean, I was very disappointed on May 14th tonight, but I got up on May 15th and kept doing my job. I've been re-elected as an MLA, as leader of the opposition. And it's our job to hold the government to account. We've been forced them to back down on some key issues already, and we're going to continue to do that work. I've decided to not be the leader in the next election, but I'm going to be continuing my work as leader until a new one is selected. And I'm enjoying it very much, raising issues, fighting for people, which is how I made my reputation in politics and how I'm going to continue to work.
Many would say that the big change for you in your race for the leadership, the big change, the pivotal moment, happened right here in Kamloops when you had a change of heart in regard to the Kinder Morgan pipeline and some of the comments that you made about the Vancouver Port Authority. We have that clip. We might just take a quick look.
Our position is pretty clear that we do not expect Vancouver to become a major oil export port, as appears to be suggested in what Kinder Morgan is proposing to the province and to the country.
That was back in April. So I play that because you've had lots of time now to sort of think about that, and there's been lots of space in between. What are your thoughts now about that? Look, because for many people, they would say that that was the pivotal moment for you. And of course, heavy leadership, or heavy Liberal votes came in for both ridings here.
Well, we lost here in Kamloops, and that was disappointing because we had two great candidates, Cathy Kendall and Tom Friedman here. So that was disappointing. The election itself was very close, as they always are in BC, as I was expecting this election to be close. We had, I think, a year before the election, laid out in detail our position on the Enbridge Northern Gateway pipeline, which for a whole series of reasons, which we put up on our website and we sent to the National Energy Board, we were against Enbridge Northern Gateway. We made that clear. During the election campaign, I thought it was useful to tell people where we stood on Kinder Morgan, and I did. And for all the same really very good reasons. And so people can judge. I think that there's a tendency to want to look at politics like you look at a sporting event. Oh, that was a key interception in the second quarter. In fact, elections in BC are very close. The number of Liberal voters in general is very similar to the number of NDP voters. And the Liberals won the election with 44%. They were down a couple of points from the previous time. We only had 40 and they won. But I don't think I'd point to one thing.
Right.
There's lots of things we could have done better. I think the nature of the election campaign, a lot of people thought the Liberals were going to lose, transform Premier Clark from who she had been, which was quite unpopular, into the underdog in the race. And so there wasn't a lot of attention on the many contradictions that she had and a lot more pressure on us. That was the nature of the election, and we didn't do enough to convince enough people to vote for us to win. But there are a lot of issues in the election campaign.
Sure.
I think we could have done a better job prosecuting what's been pretty much a failed record of the government, particularly on these very issues of jobs and the economy, where the government's jobs plan has clearly failed. But now we have an elected Liberal government, and we've got our job to do as an opposition.
So September of this year
Yes.
is when the leadership vote will take place for the NDP.
Yes.
And you are therefore still going strong for 10 months, but you hope to stay on as MLA after this is done.
Well, I was elected in May as the MLA for Vancouver Kingsway, and before I was leader, I was a critic. I was the health critic. I was in Kamloops many, many times, campaigning to ensure that Royal Inland Hospital got things like the upgrade that we hope it's going to get. It's in the process now, but also to deal with such issues as sterilization at Royal Inland Hospital. I was here many times to deal with those. I'm going to continue that work as an MLA. I think that Carol James, after she stepped down as leader, continued to serve as an MLA, ran in the election, chaired our platform committee, and is a prominent critic to this day, and I'm going to continue my work.
Excellent, excellent. But freeing you up maybe for other things if you're not as busy as you are now. You'll be busy still.
I think I'll be busy still. I think I was as busy as an MLA as you are as leader. I think it's different work.
Absolutely.
When you're leader, you're managing different things, whereas an MLA, often you're focused on both your riding and the areas you've been assigned.
Right.
But I'm going to keep working hard. I think I'm known for that.
All right. Coming around full circle before we go to break, your main reason here being today for the hydro concerns. What can people do if they want their voice heard, if they want to express their dissatisfaction?
Look, you talked about Mr. Lake and Mr. Stone getting elected in Kamloops. They got elected, like the Premier did, telling people that they were wrestling hydro rates to the ground. They misled people. And I think I could argue they did it deliberately. Whether they did it deliberately or inadvertently, they misled people. And they should be held accountable for that. So they can take the 2 steps I suggested. Don't take the dividend this year. Don't make BC Hydro borrow money it doesn't have to pay the Liberal government money to pretend you have a balanced budget, 1. And 2, respect the BC Utilities Commission, something the Liberals also promised to do, and allow them to assess Hydro's rate increases and allow the public to comment on it. There's 2 things that we can do. And if Mr. Lake and Mr. Stone and a few other Liberal MLAs agree with that, then we can change the policy.
Adrian Dix, thank you for being here today.
Well, it was good to be here, Susan. Good to see you.
Enjoy your stay.
Right on.
All right, we are back in 2 minutes with lots more Midday. Stay with us.